The moment Jennifer Aniston stood up, everyone in the studio assumed something had gone wrong. She did not reach for a water glass. She did not ask for a moment to collect herself. She simply stood, pushed back her chair, and walked off the set. Not quickly, not dramatically, just steadily, without a word of explanation, off the edge of the stage and into the wings, while 300 people watched the empty guest chair in total silence. Jimmy Fallon did not move. The cameras did not cut. And for the next 90 seconds, nobody in that studio, not the producers in the booth, not the floor director, not the audience, understood what had just happened, or what was going to happen next. It was a Tuesday evening in March 2024. The Tonight Show had booked Jennifer Aniston to talk about her new project, and Studio 6B had filled the way it fills when someone genuinely beloved is coming. Not with the restless energy of a crowd waiting to be entertained, but with the particular warmth of people who already feel something before the guest has walked out. These were mostly people who had grown up watching Friends on Thursday nights, who still remembered exactly where they were when the finale aired, who had spent 30 years feeling like Jennifer Aniston was, in some small way, someone they actually knew. She came out looking exactly the way she always does, grounded, a little funny before Jimmy had finished his first question. Jimmy had built the first segment around something he called Before They Were Aniston. Archival photographs, early audition footage, fragments of a New York childhood that most people had never seen. The show's head researcher, who had spent 12 years sourcing archival material for celebrity interviews, said afterward that in all that time she had never seen a subject react the way Jennifer Aniston reacted to the third photograph. The first two photographs had landed exactly as Jimmy expected, Jennifer laughing, filling in the story behind images most of the audience had never seen. Then Jimmy put the third photograph on the screen. Not with fanfare, not with introduction, not staged as a centerpiece moment. Just a group photograph, colors faded the way photographs from 1977 fade when they have spent decades in a drawer that is not quite dark enough. 14 children on a small community theater stage. A woman in her early 30s standing to the left of the group, one hand resting lightly on the shoulder of a small girl in the front row. Jennifer looked at it, her head tilted. Her hand, which had been resting easily on the arm of her chair, moved slowly to her chest. The warmth she had been carrying through the entire first hour of the interview drained out of her expression. Not the way a person composes themselves, but the way a person looks when they have suddenly seen something they were not prepared to see. Jimmy said, very quietly, "You know her?" Jennifer did not answer. The entire studio froze. 300 people held their breath. The roots stopped moving. Questlove's sticks came to rest on the rim of the snare drum and did not lift again. Jimmy leaned forward. Jennifer was still looking at the photograph on the screen, at the woman in her early 30s, standing to the left of the group of children. The wrong assumptions came immediately. Was this someone who had passed away? Was this a painful memory? Had something gone wrong with the research? And then Jennifer Aniston stood from her chair without a word and walked off the edge of the stage and into the wings. Her voice was barely above a whisper, but caught perfectly by her lapel microphone as she crossed into the dark just off stage, Maggie. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what happened in 1977. Jennifer Aniston wasn't always Jennifer Aniston. Star, icon, one of the most recognized faces on the planet. In 1977, she was 8 years old, and she was not doing well. In the fall of 1977, Jennifer Aniston was living in a rent-controlled apartment in the West Village with her mother Nancy. Her parents had not officially separated yet, but the apartment had developed the particular silence of a home where the adults had stopped speaking in front of the child. Her father John, an actor himself, working steadily, often away, was in Los Angeles more than he was in New York. Nancy was holding everything together in the way women of that era often held things together, quietly, without asking for help, without putting a name to what was happening. Jennifer was a perceptive 8-year-old. She knew. She went to school. She came home. She sat in rooms and watched the adults around her and did not say much about any of it. Margaret Torres, Maggie, always Maggie, was 31 years old that fall, and she was running the theater arts program at the West Village Community Center on Leroy Street on a part-time salary that nobody would have called adequate. She had been doing it for 3 years because she believed, with the completeness some people reserve for religion, that children who had no language for what was happening inside them could sometimes find one on a stage. She had watched it happen. She had seen frightened, wordless children arrive and leave with something they could not name yet, but would carry for the rest of their lives. Jennifer's mother enrolled her in the Thursday afternoon sessions in October, more as somewhere for her to be than with any real expectation. Jennifer sat in the back during the first session and watched the other children with a stillness that most adults would have mistaken for shyness. Maggie did not mistake it for shyness. She recognized it as attention. The deep, absorbing, slightly older than it should be attention of a child who has been watching grown-ups navigate difficult things and has learned to read rooms very carefully. She left Jennifer alone for the first 2 sessions and watched her watch everyone else. By the 3rd session, Jennifer was on her feet. By the 5th, she was the child the other children watched. Maggie had been doing this work long enough to know what she was seeing, not raw talent, not stage presence, but something more specific. A child who needed the stage the way other children need playgrounds, who was using the theater not as performance, but as somewhere to put what she had no other place for. After the 8th session, as the children were collecting their coats and bags, Maggie folded a small piece of paper and pressed it into Jennifer's hand on her way out the door. For next week, she told her. Jennifer opened it on the walk home. In Maggie's handwriting, 4 words: "You belong on a stage." Jennifer kept going to the Thursday sessions until the following spring, when the community center's arts funding was cut and the program ended. She never forgot Maggie's name. She said so in a magazine interview in 2003 that nobody followed up on, because the interviewer moved quickly past it. In the late 1990s, when she had the means to search, she tried to find Margaret Torres and found nothing. Wrong borough records. A name too common to narrow down. Dead ends. She assumed Maggie had moved on. She kept the piece of paper in a small wooden box in her bedroom in Los Angeles. It had been there for 47 years. Margaret Torres was 78 years old now, still in Brooklyn, living in a 1-bedroom apartment in Red Hook near her daughter Isabel. She had spent 45 years teaching theater to children in community programs across New York City, and she had retired only when her lungs made the decision for her. Stage 4. 6 months, maybe less. Isabel had been with her through every consultation and had asked her, quietly, after the 3rd one, whether there was anything she still wanted. Maggie thought about it for 4 days. Then she told Isabel there was one thing. A letter went to the Tonight Show's guest relations office. The response from Jennifer Aniston's team came back within 18 hours. No conditions. No negotiation. The one instruction Jennifer gave was this: don't tell her what the segment is. Don't tell her what the photograph shows. I want her to feel like a person, not a moment. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. Behind the scenes, Jennifer Aniston had made a decision that defied every producer's expectation. She had asked for Maggie to be placed not in the audience, but in the wings, just off stage, with Isabel, close enough to hear the interview. The photograph was the signal. The moment Jennifer saw it, she would know exactly where to go. But this is the moment no one in the studio and no one watching at home ever saw coming. Back in the present, the empty chair, the photograph still glowing on the screen, Jimmy standing at the edge of the stage, looking into the dark of the wings. 300 people who have not moved or spoken in nearly 2 minutes. A 78-year-old woman with stage 4 lung cancer is standing just out of frame, leaning on a cane, listening to the silence of the studio she has never been in before. And from the wings, picked up by a boom microphone that the sound engineer did not turn off, comes the sound of 2 people not speaking. For a long time, and then Jennifer Aniston walks back out onto the Tonight Show stage. She is not alone. Maggie Torres moved slowly. She had a cane, and she used it without apology, and there was something about the straightness of her shoulders as she walked out into the light that made the room go quieter than it had already been. Jennifer had her hand on Maggie's arm. They walked to the desk together, and Jimmy Fallon, who had not sat back down, stepped back and made room without being asked, because some moments do not need a host. He said, "Quietly, folks, I think we need to let this happen," and did not say anything else. Questlove stood from behind, his drum kit. The director did not cut to commercial. The cameraman closest to the stage did not pull back a single inch. Jennifer helped Maggie into the guest chair. Then she reached into the pocket of her blazer and pulled out a small piece of paper. Folded, soft at the edges the way paper gets after 47 years of being kept. She unfolded it carefully, the way you unfold something that has been unfolded many times before and that you have learned to handle with a specific kind of care. She held it flat so Maggie could read it. Maggie looked at the paper. Her hand came up slowly to her face. "You kept it," Maggie said. "Every place I've ever lived," Jennifer said. "It moved with me every single time." Maggie read the 4 words again, her lips moving without sound. "I wrote that in 2 minutes," she said. "I know," Jennifer said. "I didn't know that until recently. I thought it had taken you a long time." "You were so quiet," Maggie said. "The first 2 sessions, you just sat there. I was watching you," Jennifer said. "I was trying to figure out if it was safe." Maggie's hand moved across the desk and covered Jennifer's, the hand holding the paper, and held it there. Her eyes were wet, and she did not try to stop them. "Was it?" she asked. "Yes," Jennifer said. Her voice did not hold on the word. It was the only place that was. Maggie placed her other hand over the paper, pressing it gently between both of hers, and neither of them moved to separate. Jimmy Fallon was still standing at the edge of the stage, his hand over his mouth, doing what the best hosts learn to do in moments like this: nothing at all. The standing ovation started somewhere in the middle of the audience and moved outward, row by row, the way a wave moves when it has nowhere left to go. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. Margaret Torres passed away 8 weeks later, on a Friday morning in May, at Isabel's home in Red Hook. She was 78 years old. The paper, "You Belong on a Stage," had been framed by Jennifer's assistant the week after the show aired and sent to Isabel, who placed it on the nightstand in her mother's room, where it stayed until the end. Jennifer did not attend the memorial service in person, but she called Isabel the morning of the service, and they spoke for 40 minutes. Isabel has not said what was said. The clip from The Tonight Show reached 12 million views in the first 10 days. Jennifer watched it once, a few weeks after it aired, and then did not watch it again. She said in a brief statement that there was nothing the clip could show her that she did not already have. The wooden box is still on the nightstand in Los Angeles. Some people spend 45 years teaching children how to speak without knowing that one afternoon, with 4 words and a folded piece of paper, they had already said everything.